You signed the papers on a Tuesday, drove it home, parked it in the driveway, stood there for a second, looking at it, waiting for the feeling. The one you were promised. The one where everything clicks into place and you think, I made it. And it came for about 11 minutes. Then you walked inside, set the keys on the counter, and opened your laptop to check your bank account. And that thing you felt in the dealership, that certainty, that momentum, that sense of forward motion, it was already gone. Replaced by something quieter, something you won't mention to anyone for months. The faint, persistent awareness that you just locked yourself into something. Not a car, a commitment. 60 months of something. And the strange part is, you can afford it. That's what makes this different from a mistake. You can afford the payment. You checked. You ran the numbers. You even used one of those online calculators. And everything said yes. But nobody told you that can afford and is free are two completely different financial states. And the distance between them is exactly where your life is about to get quietly, invisibly smaller. There's a version of this that everyone talks about. The version where someone buys a car they clearly can't afford. Flashy, irresponsible, 24 years old with a $60,000 truck payment. That's easy to see, easy to judge, easy to feel superior to. But that's not the trap. The trap is the reasonable one. The practical sedan. The mid-range SUV. The one with good safety ratings and 3 rows because the kids need space. The one your coworker drives. The one the internet told you was a smart choice. The one that costs $480 a month, which is exactly nothing dramatic enough to make you question it. And that's the problem. It doesn't feel like a trap because it looks like a plan. You didn't overspend, you didn't stretch, you just did what people do. And somewhere inside that transaction, something closed that you didn't hear shut. Here's what I want you to hold in your mind, and I won't explain it yet. There's a difference between what a payment costs and what a payment prevents. That distinction is going to matter more than anything else in this entire conversation, and it won't fully make sense until much later. But don't forget it. Think about water. Not a river, not a flood, just water in a pipe. Your income is the water. Your life is the pipe. And every fixed monthly payment, every subscription, every obligation that shows up on the first of the month, whether you want it to or not, those are valves. They don't stop the water, they redirect it. One valve for rent, one for insurance, one for the phone bill, one for the streaming services, one for the student loan. Each one small, each one reasonable, each one quietly pulling water away before you ever get to touch it. Now add the car payment, another valve, another $400, $500, $600 a month siphoned off before you wake up on a Saturday morning and decide what your money should do. And here's what most people never realize. They never do the math on how many valves are open. They just feel the pressure drop. They feel it when the paycheck hits and the account barely moves. They feel it when they check the balance on the 15th and wonder where it all went. They feel it in that vague sense that they should have more room than they do. The water is flowing. The income is real. But by the time it reaches the end of the pipe, the part where your choices live, the part where your freedom sits, there's almost nothing left. Not because you're broke, because the valves took everything first. And the car payment, the one that seems so manageable, so normal, so obviously fine, it's one of the biggest valves in the entire system. Not because it's the most expensive, because it's the most invisible. You stopped seeing it months ago. It's automatic. It comes out on the 3rd. You don't even open the notification anymore. And every month, it quietly removes $500 from the space between your income and your life, between what you earn and what you actually experience, between who you are and who you could become if that money were still yours. But here's where this gets uncomfortable, because this isn't about the car. Not really. This is about what you traded for the car, without knowing you were trading anything at all. Imagine your income as a hallway. Long, well lit, doors on both sides. Each door is an option. One is the ability to quit a job that's draining you. One is the chance to take 3 months off and figure out what you actually want. One is starting that thing you've been thinking about for 2 years. One is saying no to a project that pays well but makes you miserable. Each door requires one thing to open: margin. Cash that isn't committed. Money that belongs to no one. Not the bank, not the lease company, not the insurance provider, just you. And every month, when that car payment extracts its $500, it doesn't just take money. It locks a door. Not loudly, not dramatically. You don't hear it close. You just walk down the hallway one day and reach for a handle and realize it doesn't turn. You're not broke. You're not in crisis. You just have fewer doors than you thought you did. And you can't figure out when they closed. What if I told you the most dangerous financial product in America isn't a credit card, isn't a payday loan, isn't even a subprime mortgage? What if the most dangerous product is the one that feels responsible? The average car payment in the United States right now is somewhere around $730 a month for a new vehicle. Let that sit. $730. And the average loan term has stretched to nearly 70 months, almost 6 years. You will be paying for this car for 6 years, and during that time, something happens that no one talks about in the dealership, that no finance article really explains, that your parents never mentioned because it didn't happen to them. The car loses value faster than you pay it off. For the first 2, sometimes 3 years of the loan, you owe more on the car than the car is worth. You're underwater. Not on a house, on a sedan. And you don't know it because no one sends you a letter saying you're currently in negative equity on your Honda. You find out when something changes, when you need to sell it, when you get in an accident, when life shifts and suddenly the car that was supposed to serve you is holding you hostage because you can't get rid of it without writing a check to cover the difference. But even that isn't the real cost. The real cost is what $730 a month would have become if it had gone somewhere else. Not into another purchase, into time. There's a moment in most people's financial life where the gap between what they earn and what they need is wide enough to build something. An investment, a buffer, a runway, a future. And that moment doesn't last forever. It exists between the time your income starts rising and the time your obligations catch up. That gap is the most valuable space in your financial life. And the car payment fills it. Not with freedom, with metal that depreciates 11% the moment you drive it off the lot. Think about what happens to the way a person makes decisions when every dollar is already spoken for. Not gone, spoken for, allocated, committed. There's a difference between being broke and being fully committed, but the psychological effect is almost identical. When your paycheck arrives and 93% of it is already assigned to recurring obligations, the remaining 7% isn't freedom, it's maintenance. It's the cushion between you and overdraft. It's the space you're terrified to touch, because if anything goes wrong, if the brakes need replacing, if the copay is higher than expected, if your kid needs something for school, that 7% is all you've got. And so you make decisions from that 7%, not from abundance, from a thin, fragile margin that feels nothing like the salary you're earning. You earn $110,000 a year. You should feel powerful. You should feel like you have options. But you don't. Because the car payment, the rent, the insurance, the loans, the subscriptions, They've consumed the structure of your income before you ever got to make a choice with it. And here's what changes inside you when that happens. You stop taking risks. Not big, irresponsible risks. Smart ones. Calculated ones. The kind that build wealth, that create career leverage, that open new chapters. You don't negotiate your salary because you can't afford to lose this job. You don't take the 3-month contract that pays more but has a gap afterward. You don't start the business you've been researching for a year. You don't even push back in meetings because the background hum of financial fragility makes you quieter than you'd be otherwise. You become manageable. You become predictable. You become the person who shows up, does the work, doesn't cause problems, and goes home to a car that's still not paid off. Not because you're weak, because the math won't let you be brave. Now imagine someone with the same salary but no car payment. Same income, same city, same job, but $600 a month that isn't committed to anything. What does that feel like? Not in a spreadsheet, in a body. It feels like breathing room. It feels like the ability to say, let me think about it, instead of, I need this. It feels like showing up to a negotiation knowing you can walk away. It feels like sleeping through the night without the low-grade awareness that you're one surprise expense away from stress. $600 a month isn't wealth, but the absence of that obligation, the negative space where the payment used to be, that absence changes everything. Not because of what you do with the money, because of what you stop doing without it. You stop clenching. You stop calculating every grocery trip. You stop pretending you don't want things you actually want because you've already accepted that your money isn't yours. Here's where the numbers do something that most people don't expect. Because when you talk about car payments, people think in monthly terms. $500 here, $600 there. It doesn't sound like much because it's designed not to sound like much. The entire structure of consumer auto lending is built to make large numbers feel small. You're not buying a $40,000 car. You're getting into a manageable monthly payment of $549. But run it forward. $550 a month for 6 years is $39,600. You know this. What you don't know is what that money would have done in a boring, ordinary index fund over the same period. At an average annual return of 8%, that same monthly contribution grows to roughly $52,000 over 6 years. You spent $39,600 on an asset that's now worth maybe $14,000. Or you could have had $52,000 in an investment account. The difference isn't $13,000. The difference is $38,000. Because you lost $25,000 in depreciation and missed $52,000 in growth. And that's one car, one cycle. Most people do this 4, 5, 6 times in a working life. Run the same math over 30 years, $550 a month into an index fund instead of a car payment, and you're looking at something north of $760,000. $750,000 from a single line item on your monthly budget. Not from a business, not from an inheritance, not from a lucky break, from a car you didn't buy. That number should make you physically uncomfortable. Not because you've done something wrong, because you're starting to see what was always there, hiding in the ordinary math of a monthly payment nobody questions. But the money isn't even the most important part. I know that sounds wrong, but listen. The real shift isn't in the account balance. It's in the identity. When you have no car payment, you become a different person. Not philosophically, practically. You become the person at the table who doesn't need this deal. You become the person in the relationship who isn't staying because they can't afford to leave. You become the person in the office who can afford to be honest. Because the secret about leverage, real leverage, the kind that changes your career trajectory and your negotiating power and the way people respond to you in a room. It doesn't come from confidence. It comes from options. And options come from margin. And margin comes from the absence of obligations that didn't need to exist. The car payment is the most socially acceptable chain in America. Everyone has one. Nobody questions it. And it sits there, month after month, year after year, quietly extracting not just money, but identity. Because when you're paying $700 a month for a car you need to get to a job that you need to make the payment on a car you need to get to the job, you're not building a life. You're maintaining a loop. And the loop doesn't care about your ambitions. It only cares about next month. There's a specific kind of calm that comes from being unchained to payments. Not the calm of wealth, not the calm of having millions, the calm of having nothing pulling at you on the first of the month. It changes the way you walk into rooms, the way you respond to pressure, the way you think about Tuesday. Not the big moments, Tuesday, the ordinary, nothing happening day where most of your life actually lives. When Tuesday isn't colored by financial anxiety, when there's no background process running in your mind calculating whether you can cover everything this month, something opens up. Not something dramatic, something quiet. Space. The kind of space where ideas form, where patience becomes possible, where you stop reacting to your life and start choosing it. That's not a feeling you can buy with a higher salary. You can only build it by removing the things that prevent it. Now here's where most people destroy everything. Right at the edge of understanding this. They feel the shift. They see the math. They recognize the trap. And they do one of two things, both catastrophic. The first is they pay off the car and immediately buy another one. Not because they need it, because the space felt uncomfortable. The absence of the payment created a void, and the void felt wrong because they've never had margin before. They don't know what to do with financial silence, so they fill it with another commitment. Another 60 months, another valve in the pipe, and they're right back where they started, except now they've also lost the time. The second mistake is subtler. They keep the paid off car, they feel the margin, and they expand their lifestyle to fill it. Not with another car, with everything else. The nicer apartment, the upgraded vacation, the subscription they always wanted but couldn't justify. They don't add a new car payment. They add 15 small ones. And the effect is identical. The margin disappears. The doors close again. The hallway gets shorter. And they never understand why they still feel stuck, even though they did the thing. They killed the car payment, but they didn't protect what it left behind. And what it left behind was the most valuable thing they'd ever had. Not money. Space. The space to choose. The space to wait. The space to survive a bad quarter without panic. The space to say no. The space to build something that doesn't show up in a driveway, but shows up in every room you walk into for the rest of your life. Remember what I said at the beginning. There's a difference between what a payment costs and what a payment prevents. You understand it now. The payment costs $500, $600, $700 a month. That's the number on the statement. That's the part everyone sees. But what it prevents is invisible. It prevents the investment that would have compounded for 30 years. It prevents the margin that would have changed how you negotiate, how you sleep, how you decide. It prevents the moment where work becomes a choice instead of a requirement. It prevents the exit, not the exit from a car, the exit from the version of your life where every month is already spent before it begins. You signed the papers on a Tuesday, drove it home, parked it in the driveway, stood there for a second, looking at it. And the feeling that came wasn't what you expected. 11 minutes of certainty. Then the quiet return of something heavier. You can still feel it. That low hum underneath everything. That sense that something isn't wrong exactly, but something isn't free either. Now you know what it is. It's not the car. It's the door that closed behind you when you weren't listening. And the only thing on the other side of that door, the only thing that was ever on the other side, was the version of your life where the money was still yours, where the choices were still open, where Tuesday still belonged to you.